What I learned in the shooting is how life can truly change in any instant. You don't know whether or not you're going to live and go to sleep the next night. But that's why you have to make every day like your last.
Welcome to the revolution.
When we planned this day, we initially thought there were going to be a few hundred students from Stoneman Douglas. Then it turned into a few 100,000. It's amazing, but it is just the beginning.
When politicians send their thoughts and prayers with no action, we say no more.
When I looked out and saw the energy of that crowd and the passion and their happiness, I felt absolutely empowered by them.
Let's put the USA over the NRA.
Initially, I had some fear because I've had death threats against me, but those fears immediately melted away.
Hi, I'm Maya, and I'm 16 years old, and I'm in a creative writing program through After School Matters in Chicago.
Personally, I have been through so much gun violence, it's not even funny. I still hear gunshots around my neighborhood.
He pulls out this silver pistol and points it in my face and said these words that to this day haunt me and give me nightmares. He said, if you said anything, I will find you. He pulls out this silver pistol and points it in my face. This silver pistol and points it, silver pistol.
When officers are asked how they would control a knife attacker, they usually say, I'd shoot him, forgetting that they may not have time to in reality. Here, still unrehearsed, is what really happens when officers assume they can automatically use deadly force against a knifer. They stand their ground and try to draw, or try to draw and disengage simultaneously, or even worse, try to draw, fall down, and shoot. And they lose, because time and distance work for the offender and against the officer. With a reactionary gap of about 1 foot or less, it's impossible for you to react quickly enough to even touch your holstered sidearm once the attack begins. At about 5 feet, the average officer can't even get his sidearm unholstered.
Silver pistol, and yet I'm still saying something today.
Seeing all these people come here to support our cause and to see that they want a change and they demand a change, it's amazing.
I don't think you necessarily need a gun to protect yourself, and taking away their amendment will not be punishing them, because if you do not have guns in the first place, then you will not need guns to protect yourself.
So if I don't have a gun in my home and I live in the hood, and some black person come through my door to try to kill my kids, how will I defend my kids?
Use your resources. You throw over the guy, you use a table, you use a chair.
What happens if he has a gun?
No shade.
It's like you stole the gun from somebody.
No, but how will I protect myself from him if he breaks into my home to kill my children and he has a gun?
If he has a gun, then... Oh, that's a hard question.
Do you think we need to ban guns?
I definitely think we need to ban guns after these numerous shootings that have happened. I think it's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd.
And so if someone breaks into your house, you're sleeping, and you don't have a gun, and they do, how would you protect yourself and your family?
If they had a gun and I didn't?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're right. You got me there.
Yeah.
So, dude, I'm bad at this.
No, you're doing good.
My name is Alex Wynn. I'm a junior at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
How do you guys think you're going to remember this day?
I mean, this day's going to be in history books.
That the only way to defeat the West and to defeat anything is by disinformation. How to, to teach those young men, the one they chose, how to infiltrate culture and bring about how to change the culture with disinformation.
In the wake of the tragedy on February 14th, we, as students, as youths, decided that if adults weren't going to take action, we would. It's a day that my children are going to read about, because this is the day when America decided that it was time for a change.
At about 10 feet, you might get your sidearm out, but you probably won't get a shot off. A suspect with a knife can close 7 paces and deliver deadly force in less than 1 1/2 seconds.
I want to go to, you know how in this country they want to ban guns? They blame it on the guns, the shooting, the killing on the guns and not the people. They have, the children of the law have no respect for the Second Amendment. And now they want to ban guns. They're so crazy. And the ones who are pushing banning the guns are using the blind people.
The ATF says that the trend of building ghost guns actually started right here in California because of the state's notoriously strict gun laws, especially when it comes to AR-15s. Now, a lot of legal, responsible gun owners build them for their own personal use, which is perfectly legal. But the feds say people who aren't allowed to own guns are now building their own untraceable firearms, sometimes with deadly results. They look and sound like normal guns, but these homemade firearms hold a secret. They're unregistered in the state of California, and the government can't trace them.
With no serial number and no other markings, that's impossible to do.
We are seeing ghost guns every other day.
They're firearms the feds never know about because you build them yourself.
Drill, 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 drill to the appropriate depths.
It's all perfectly legal as long as you're allowed to own a gun. But when they fall into the wrong hands with people who know they're not supposed to legally have guns, the consequences can be deadly.
He shot me 4 times, even through the chest, and half my ear was gone.
June 2013, Santa Monica. John Zawahiri murders his dad and brother before setting their house on fire. He then goes on a shooting rampage at Santa Monica College, killing 3 people before police gunned him down. Zawahiri was banned from buying a gun in California because of mental health issues, so he built his own AR-15, which he used in the deadly attacks.
After I was shot, it was about a week later. It was the first time I heard the word ghost gun.
Deborah Lynn Fine was shot by Zawahiri 4 times during that massacre.
He just stared at me, raised his gun, and started shooting through my windshield. He got 40 bullets into my car within about 60 seconds, and I was the only survivor.
John Zawahiri had applied, or at least had attempted to lawfully acquire a firearm, and he got rejected.
ATF Senior Special Agent David Hamilton was the one who examined Zawahiri's homemade gun after the massacre.
Certainly looks like it was a ghost gun. There were no markings on it. There was certainly no serial number.
What the ATF did find was a receipt showing that Zawahiri had bought what's known as an unfinished receiver, which is the building block of all ghost guns.
This is an unfinished receiver for an AR-15 type firearm. It is commonly called an 80% receiver.
By itself, the unfinished receiver is nothing more than a paperweight, so it's not considered a firearm and not subject to federal regulations. No serial number, no background checks. You can buy all the parts and devices and then get the online training you need to turn that chunk of metal into an untraceable firearm.
This would be an AR pistol.
Army veteran Jeremy is a legal gun owner who decided to build his own ghost guns after he says he heard talk that they should be banned.
That was when I decided I had to jump on the bandwagon and build one of these myself and see exactly what was involved. I bought a parts kit from a gun show. I bought the upper and obviously the optics from a gun show and assembled it at home.
Everything else you need to build a ghost gun can be bought at a gun show like this. It's all perfectly legal, but the ATF worries that criminals with sinister intentions can take advantage of just how easy it is. These are photos from the ATF showing numerous ghost guns they've recovered, all purchased from one single warehouse in La Habra, California. Ginger Colburn of ATF Los Angeles says that warehouse owner was indicted after he made and sold the ghost guns to 27 people who weren't allowed to own firearms.
About 20 of them were felons. These individuals are not allowed to have firearms. They're not supposed to have firearms. And they're the ones walking into these warehouses getting these firearms made for them.
To try and solve the issue, California has a pending regulation that would go into effect July 1st, 2018. It would require anybody who has already built a homemade firearm to register it with California DOJ so it can be traced, and any future homemade guns would have to be registered as well. But legal gun owners say criminals won't follow the law.
As a legal gun owner, I'm told I have to register these now, so I will register by the deadline. But even when I register, how does that help someone who's not supposed to have one not get them?
These ghost guns can kill. I still think about him sometimes. I think about John Zawahiri. It's strange to know I'm alive, I made it, they didn't.
And the ATF says there's just absolutely no way of knowing how many of these ghost guns are out there on the streets, because they say local police departments often don't report the guns to them because they don't have any serial numbers. Now, they say even though ghost guns started right here in California, it's now spreading all across the entire country and even across the border to Mexico. That's where they've caught Americans actually trying to smuggle ghost guns down to the cartels. And they say the cartels are now starting to build their own firearms.
Because the ones who are behind the scene are not going to give up on their guns. Believe me, their bodyguards are heavily armed. They are armed. They live behind gated communities. They're not going to give up their guns. But they're using the blind people in order to encourage them to give up their guns so that they can control the folks.
We have the Constitution, which says, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But under Sharia law, which the Muslims think is higher, Allah's words is the government. Non-Muslims cannot possess weapons of any kind. You know, if America ever became majority Muslim, they would institute Sharia law, and nobody can have a gun except Muslims. That's their law.
I reported on a school, I believe it's in Pennsylvania somewhere, that is, rather than having the teachers armed in the school, the superintendent put buckets of rocks into the classrooms so that when if a person should come in with a gun, then the student and the teachers can throw rocks at the gunman. What do you think of that idea?
I think that's kind of a silly idea.
So God said, don't have two different laws in the country, just one law. Under American law, no unreasonable searches and seizures. Under Sharia law, seize the land, the houses, and the wealth of non-Muslims. If you're not a Muslim, they can come in and seize everything you've got. That's what their law says. I took away his house, I took his car because he's not a Muslim. No cruel and unusual punishments. Under Muslim law, they cut off the hands of the thief. You steal something, they cut your hands off. That's cruel and unusual punishment.
Well, they still do it today. When I live
They still do it. You were over there.
Yeah, every Friday.
Congress shall allow the freedom of speech. Ye shall not insult Allah or his prophet under Sharia law. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion. That's our Constitution. Those who reject Islam must be killed. 109 times in the Quran it says you have to kill somebody if they won't become Muslim.
Well, in London, I don't even think they have guns. People can carry guns at all. And as a result, Reuters has reported that London murder rate overtakes New York as knife crime rises. So in London, they banned the guns, and so now the people are killing with knives. And I'm wondering out loud, I think it has a lot to do with the refugees who they have allowed to come into their country unchecked in most cases, and a whole lot of those folks are Muslims.
The terror attack in London last week by a British-born Muslim raises a strange possibility that actually looks like a mathematical certainty, and that is that we could be looking at the end of Britain as we know it before the end of this century. The policy of mass immigration in Britain has brought what one expert calls demographic upheaval to the United Kingdom. Demographic upheaval that could change everything. Professor David Coleman, who's a professor of demography at Oxford, has written that uncontrolled immigration in Britain could lead to what he calls finis Britanniae, the end of Britain. Says he's not anti-Muslim, just simply looking at statistics.
Jihad of the womb. What is jihad of the womb? It is when they move into nation and birth. It is how they are shifting the world, use Western civilization by birth. In France, for example, the French birth rate is 1.8%. The Muslim rate is 8.1%. The French are birthing 2 children, while the Muslim are birthing 8.1, 9 children. So therefore, they are changing everything by birth alone. When you look at that rate, all of it is they are changing our world. And today, they want the refugees to come here to populate by birth. Marriage jihad. We are commanded to marry a woman. It is right for the Muslim man to marry a non-Muslim woman, so he can use her for the platform, because the Quran says, الرجال قوامون على النساء, meaning women are owned by men, and they are in charge of the women. So therefore, you are his stepping stone to give him the authority to marry and get your citizenship and use that constitution, American Constitution, against your nation. Financial jihad is called Sharia law banking. Sharia law, jihad, which is it is how they're invading, bringing Sharia into our courts, and how they're infiltrating our courts. Immigration, that's called al-hujra. I talked about it earlier. Education, banking, judicial, religious.
More than 500,000 non-British citizens immigrated to the United Kingdom in 2016. Anne-Marie Walters from a watchdog group called Sharia Watch said, we have about 100 Sharia courts in the UK now. We're the only Western country with a functioning network of Sharia tribunals and councils.
Sharia is, Islam without Sharia are disabled. They could not do anything. That's why they want to establish Sharia. When Sharia is established, now they can work jihad into their Sharia, into the nation. And so what happened in here, the Sharia law, the Sharia is the law of Islam. So when you say Sharia, you're saying law. And that is what constitutes everything to the Muslim. It tells them how to eat, how to live, how to go to the bathroom, how to get married, how to cut their nails, how to blow their nose, how to treat their women, how to raise their children, why to kill dogs, and all the element that they do, it's prescribed in Sharia. The reason we know that Islam is slavery is because when they take upon Sharia, it means they have no way of their own. Now they have to live by code that's given to them. What is the Great Commission of Islam? This is very important. The Great Commission of Islam is a little different than the Great Commission of Christianity. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, he said, Inni umirtu an uqatil al-shu'ub. I have been commanded by Allah to war against the people of the world until everyone says there's no God but Allah and Muhammad his prophet. And if they do not concede to you, then you have the right to their women, to their children, to their home, to their land, to their finances. It is your inheritance. Today, the Muslims are coming to the United States of America, are looking for the inheritance. This is what they're doing in Europe. But when Muslims begin, it begins as peaceful. Anytime they're 2% and under, they are peaceful. When they increase to 5% and what so have you, they start creating conversion, and they start going to the jail system, to the school system, to the poor neighborhood. And now this is what's happening in America, is advancing. When they go to the mark, 10% and more, what happened? They become lawless and violent. They start tackling the nation. This is what's happening in France. This is what happened in England, Netherlands. Entire Europe is seeing all this. And when it goes to 50%, they will take over the nation. This is what Islam will do.
Reuters has reported that London murder rate overtakes New York as knife crime rises. So in London, they banned the guns, and so now the people are killing with knives because they're out of control refugees in that country. This is from the Blaze. London mayor enacts knife control policy to crack down on stabbing epidemic. And so the mayor of London want to ban knives because stabbing epidemics, it's just gone out of control, folks. So you take away the guns, and now they're killing with knives. And yes, believe it or not, the mayor of London, this is from London, this is from the Blaze, London Muslim mayor tweeted, "No excuses. There is never a reason to carry a knife. anyone who does will be caught and they will feel the full force of the law. Isn't that amazing? So now in London, they want to ban knives. I know it sounds like a joke, but it's true. They want to ban knives in London. And I know a lot of you think that it's funny and you can't believe it. I feel the same way. But it's coming to this country too. If they can get away with banning guns, knives will be next. Because banning knives, banning guns is as stupid of an idea as banning knives.
I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. We are at the so-called March for Our Lives gun rally, when in reality it's against the Second Amendment. They want to take away our rights to bear ourselves. So we are here today to talk to some of these stupid young kids who have no idea what they're doing or why they're here. They're being used by the elitists, Democratic Party, and the media, people like Oprah, George Clooney, and others.
It's so interesting to me that all of a sudden the adults are trusting the children. We never trusted the children before, but we can trust them when it comes to the Second Amendment. That's mind-blowing. And these people have no right to tell us what type of gun we can own or cannot own, what reason we need. We don't need a reason. We have the Constitution. We're in a free country. We can own whatever we want to own. And the children of the lie do not have a right. They don't have my permission to tell me what I can and cannot own. And so in London, they're also killing with automobiles. Just this past weekend, somebody ran over a couple of people with a car, a truck or something, killed a couple of people. Are they going to ban automobiles as well? This is so insane. This stupid Muslim mayor want to ban knives.
Rumsfeld said, we are not going to win this war unless we identify the enemy. And if we could not say Islam is the enemy, then we could not defeat Islam.